I am Chase Godchalk, and today is October 26th, 2025. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I will be interviewing Aban Havewala about her life history as a first-generation Zoroastrian in the United States. This interview will be part of the FEZANA Fires Oral History Project. Now, Aban, please state your full name, current location, and age or birth date.
Okay. My name is Aban Havewala. I live in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, in an independent retirement community, and I am 89 years old.
Great. Thank you so much for being part of this project, Alan. Now, let's start with some biographical details.
Okay,
Um, Please spell your full name just for reference.
sure. The first name is A as in apple, B as in baker, A as in apple, N as in Nancy. My middle initial is J for Jamshed, my husband's name, and my last name is Havewala, H as in Harry, A, V as in Victor, E, Wala.
Great. Thank you. Now, to begin your story, tell me about your early childhood, what memories you had growing up, and more about like where you went to school, education.
All right. So I was born in 1936 in the town of Pune in India. Pune today is known as Pune, and at that time in the 30s and 40s was the summer capital of the British governor of Bombay. The reason why he would choose Pune as his summer capital was because of the intense monsoon that came to the island of Bombay or Mumbai as it is known today. Although I was born in Pune, I grew up in the city of Bombay or Mumbai and with my parents and my older brother Rumi and my aunt, my dad's sister, who lived with us because she had never married and depended on my father completely. I entered, so by the way, I lived in a bag. The meaning of the word bag is garden. This bag and four others were built by a wealthy shipbuilding Zoroastrian family for low and middle income Parsis to live in and around the city of Bombay and on the mainland in the suburbs. The first Bagh was Jarbagh, named after the widow of the shipbuilding company, and her three other sons built three other bags. Mine was the last one to be built, called Kusherbagh, and about 500 to 600 residents or families lived there. We had an agyari or a fire temple at the center, a beautiful Indo-Gothic structure that was donated to this Bagh by a wealthy family named Karani. There was also a Montessori school where I went from the ages of 3 to 5.5, where I learned how to read, write, and speak English, do elementary arithmetic like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and tables up to 12, which I use to this day. Uh, as soon as I graduated from Montessori school at age 5.5, I entered the St. Anne's High School, which was a convent of Jesus and Mary, run by Jesuit nuns, and they were well known for their excellent academics and a reputation that each student at graduation had earned enough points or yes, points, I would say, to enter a college. The school was, the nuns were a little conservative and rigid, but I had the good fortune to be born into a family where my parents were very advanced thinking. My mother wrote, speak, and read English, was very interested in not only India's politics, but countries like Europe, England, and the United States. And so I had a very well-rounded education at home, which was filled with books and magazines that my brother, who was 6 years older, would bring from the United States Information Service. So I was really very fortunate that I had this background, and it has helped me considerably because I, at a very early age, became a history buff. My college was, oh, now you must remember that we enter school and college at a very early age. So I had graduated from high school at the age of 15 and a half when I entered St. Xavier's College. And the first 2 years were general subjects, but in my third year, or my junior year, I took history and anthropology. I had always loved history, and this was ancient and medieval Indian history. And then anthropology was physical and cultural anthropology, where I learned so much about the indigenous people all over the world. With a bachelor's degree in history and anthropology, no one was going to hire me because there were no anthropologists in India at the time. This was 1956 when I graduated from college. So I went to business school and became and learned how to do shorthand and typing and became a secretary. I worked for 5 years with a British engineering company, and I was everything. I kept records. I typed the reports. I kept the construction drawings, and those 5 years taught me a great deal to be self-sufficient, independent, and I was still working when I met my husband, Jamshed, who had come from the United States after his master's degree and having worked there for 5 years. And he had come to India to find a wife. We were introduced. He proposed. We met on a Saturday, actually. He proposed the next day, and we were married 6 weeks later. So it was a real whirlwind romance, if you would call it. And we are happy to say we've been married 63 years. Uh, so after I married Jamshed, or Jimmy as I prefer to call him, I came to the United States on a special visa. Since Jamshed or Jimmy had a green card, a permanent residency when he came to India to marry, my number in the quota system was 10 years behind. So Jimmy tried to talk to the congressman for New York State where he worked, but nothing could be done because this was an immigration affair. So his company wrote to the Department of Defense, since the company was manufacturing equipment for the space project, and the Department of Defense granted me a special parole to come to the United States. This parole was reserved for exceptionally brilliant foreign scientists. So I can readily tell you that I know nothing or very little about science, but that was how I came to this country. But once I came here, I could not leave until I received my permanent residency 4 years later. And then in 1971, I became a proud citizen of the United States.
What what jobs your parents worked and how they helped you to like influence
Oh,
you almost.
my parents, what job they did? So my father worked two jobs for the major part of his life. He worked as a clearance agent for a big company called Tata Sons and Tata Oil Mills. And his job was to go to the docks and see to it that the equipment, the machinery and equipment that had been shipped from Europe and England to Bombay was cleared through the customs. But his second job was he moonlighted as a travel agent, and in his late 60s, he became very successful as a travel agent, where he had all the cream of the corporate clients, as well as the society, mostly wealthy Parsis who were traveling to England and Europe and the United States at the time. He worked very hard, and I remember how tired he would be when he came home. Uh, but, but in spite of all that, he was a deeply religious man who had been trained in the priesthood. And he would say his prayers morning and night for over an hour. To him, the Zoroastrian religion was everything. His faith was his rock. And he firmly believed in Zoroastrian, who is the guardian angel, who among the Zoroastrians we believe that this angel guides the soul into the presence of God on the fourth day. A light was always lit in our kitchen and in my parents' bedroom, a lamp, an oil and water lamp, and my father tended to that lamp from the time he moved into this apartment in Kushabad until the day he died. So watching my parents pray, especially my father, whose faith was so firm and so dedicated, I learned that my faith was important to me. My mother, God bless her, would talk about our religion, her upbringing as the daughter of a priest, and with both those examples, my faith has always been the bulwark of my life to this day. I have never lost my faith in ever, no matter what has happened. There have been times in our lives, my life and Jimmy's, where our faith could have been shaken, but it was never shaken. It never will be till the day I die. My life in Jamestown, New York, where I first came, was really quite exceptional. Jamestown, New York is near Buffalo, New York. And even in summer, when I arrived in July, the temperature was 70 degrees and I felt cold because I had come from 90-degree weather. And then it started to snow in October and it did not let up at all. The snow would be piled up along the streets, muddy and dirty looking, and it was freezing. The car seats were cold. No car had a heating or air conditioning. And who wanted air conditioning in a town like Jamestown? But it was a wonderful place. I made many friends. My husband's friends became my friends. And we had a baby in that year. And my daughter, Yasmin, was born in Jamestown, New York. After my first year in Jamestown, Jimmy started looking for jobs and what got a very good job with Corning Glass Company in Corning, New York. And so the three of us, baby, Jimmy, and I, moved to Corning. And once again, made many friends there. I realized that people were very interested in our Indian background and wanted to learn more about India and our faith. From Corning, New York, we were transferred to Blacksburg, Virginia, and we were there for 3.5 years, where my second baby was born, but unfortunately, he was stillborn at full term. And that was a deep, deep blow to me, and I mourn him to this day, 58 years later. We made many friends in Blacksburg also, uh, people who were connected to the Virginia Polytechnic Institute, the professors and their wives. And then finally, we moved to Newark, Delaware, where Jimmy worked for a chemical company called Hercules Chemical Company. There, our son Surosh was born, and it was a joyous time for me. I finally had my baby boy, and we had a good life in Jamestown. We spent 31 years there, made many friends again. But I realized very quickly that not everyone was interested in our faith. Uh, They were more interested if I wore a sari, then they were more interested in how I wore it and more about India than the faith. And now, when I lived in Newark, Delaware, I was fortunate enough to be a stay at home mother. And I tried to give back what I had received from this country, the comfort, a good salary for my husband, and a lovely home, and a very, very, very happy, comfortable life. So I became a Girl Scout leader for my daughter when she was a brownie, and then again when she entered the Girl Scouts. And I spent some wonderful years there learning what the Girl Scout movement was like. And then I would collect money for the March of Dimes, the American Heart Association, and the Diabetes Association. At that time, you went from home to home, about 15 to 20 homes in the afternoon or evening after the men had come home from work and in the cold and winter. But I did it because I wanted to give back. And as my daughter entered high school, I joined the PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, so that I could be of some help and pay back what I had been given. Once the children left home for college, I decided to go to work and I joined the Bank of Delaware in Wilmington, Delaware. I was a secretary and enjoyed working there for 11 years. And Bank of Delaware was bought up by the PNC Bank. And those were wonderful years where I made even more friends with whom I see and meet with at least 4 times a year. All this, all this comfort, all the good life was important. But more important than that was our daily prayers, our faith, and thanking God with every fiber of my being for all that He has given me. There were ups and downs, but nothing was that important that we had to lose our faith and just give up. No, we never gave up. I would like to add here that my husband Jimmy was the eldest son of his family, and he saw to it that both his brothers came to this country and had a good education, and both of them are extremely successful. His sister, his younger sister, also came to this country, and he managed to get a scholarship for her at the University of Delaware so she could do her master's in philosophy. She was she did it in a year and she went back, and that enabled her to find a very good husband, a wonderful man who is a real dear part of our family. I didn't have much family here. My older brother, Rumi, 6 years older, lived in England. He had worked for the Royal Air Force, and after retiring from the Air Force, he joined a British company in Oman, in the Middle East, where he worked for 3 months and then would come back to England to his wife and son for 3 weeks and then go back. Unfortunately, my brother passed away at the young age of 58, and that was a deep, deep blow to me. I miss him terribly. But through it all, uh, by the way, in Delaware, we made friends with several Parsi families. They moved to Delaware to work for the DuPont company, one for ICI, the Imperial Chemical Industries, and it soon had a group of 10 families, and we did a lot together. We had wonderful times. We met for our Nowruz and New Year functions. We met on New Year's Eve, celebrated everything, went out for dinner, came to one another's home, had potlucks, and it was just wonderful having these friends who are my friends, our friends rather, to this day. So my faith has always been very strong, and I try to teach my children about our faith. And I wanted my children to feel what I have felt. Unfortunately, my son was in Bombay when he was a little child, so he never experienced going to the Agyari. But my daughter had gone to India or to Bombay when she was in her late 20s, and she loved going to the Agyari and sitting there and just quietly enjoying the peace of it. So let me tell you a little about an Agyari. So the Agyari is a building in which there is a main hall where there are photographs or portraits of Lord Zoroaster or Jathos Sahib as we call him. The word Zoroaster or Zoroaster is actually Greek, and the word Zoroastrian is Greek for the Zarathustri religion. But to a Parsi, we are Zarathustris or Zarathustris. So anyway, so the hall is filled with portraits of the trustees, former trustees, and there are chairs there where you can sit and pray. We don't have communal worship. You pray by yourself, whether a few minutes or for hours. And then inside the big hall is another smaller hall where there is the holy fire. Now, we as lay people cannot enter that room where the holy fire is it stands in an urn, a very high urn, silver or some kind of aluminum metal, with a tray on top, and on it are pieces of sandalwood and ash. And the fire is never allowed to burn down. It always has to be tended, and so the priest tends it every 5 hours. I think they ring a bell to denote the time has changed. Because we divide the day into five periods. And while we do not observe those 5 periods, except when we are praying, because there are certain prayers for each period before you begin the main prayers. But we who lived in Kushabag could hear the bell ring, and we would bow and give thanks to God or to Dada Hormas, who is that is the name of our Creator, the Supreme Being. Uh, we call him Dada Hormas, or we call him Ahura Mazda, and or Pak Parvadigar. Many, many names, but one God, one Supreme Being. And we are proud as Zoroastrians or Zathostis to say that ours is one of the first monotheistic religions in the world. Some people may say that we originated in 600 BC, but I have my doubts. I think the faith was older than even the Jewish faith, because both the Jewish faith, Christianity, and Islam have borrowed several things from our faith. In any case, I leave that to the experts to debate. But but in our home here, throughout our lives here, there was always an oil and water lamp that burned every morning. And I would see to it that there was sufficient oil so that the lamp would burn through the night. And in the morning, I would start a fresh lamp when I started my prayers. Fortunately for me, my husband has the same deep faith as I do because he was brought up in a similar manner. And so uh, uh, when you have two people who have this deep faith, the whole marriage, the whole idea of being together becomes easy. It becomes easy to live with someone who has the same faith that you have. Now, in our home here, because we don't have an aviary, because I was brought up in a priest family, I observe the holy days and I say my prayers, especially during what I would call our All Souls Days or Muktad. The Muktad are 5 days at the end of the Zoroastrian year because we don't observe the leap year. And we believe that on those days, that the souls of our dear departed ones come to visit us and see if we remember them. And we remember them not only with prayers, but with offerings of flowers, fruit, and some specially cooked delicacy that they would have liked. I always put a lot of chocolates when I pray because my brother loved chocolates and my dad loved fruits and flowers for my mother. And it makes me feel good that I not only think of them every day and all the time, but even on those special days, which are part of the tradition of the Zoroastrians. One of the things that the future generations will wonder about is how they came by their last name. When the British firmly established themselves in India, they convened a census and they insisted that each family have a last name. Many of the Zoroastrians took the first name of an ancestor as their last name. Some took the names of the towns from which they came, and others took the names of their occupation. So we had a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer as last names. But some very enterprising Zoroastrians used the last name of the British company they worked for. So we have an Allbliss, a Bennett, a Grant, a Forbes, a Lamb, and a Marshall, and probably others that I can't remember now. The Parsis or the Zoroastrians were known as Parsis in India, and they received so many initiatives from the British government, especially when the Queen Victoria was to be crowned Empress of India. And as a result, these Zoroastrian Parsis went abroad to trade with China and Japan and were very much involved, one of them especially in the opium trade, carrying opium from Eastern India to China because they realized that China needed opium and so that family made its money on the opium trade. But there were other families that were extremely generous to the low and middle income Parsis. And so I think future generations should be very proud of their ancestors who came to India and who came there so that the religion would not die out.
How would you like to be remembered by future generations in general?
Okay, yes. And I wrote all that down. I would like to be remembered as a woman of deep faith, uh, but liberal views, tolerant of all faiths, who had studied the faiths of many other religions to better understand them. I'm also a loving wife, mother, cousin, sister, friend. I, I believe in preserving my friendships with those whom I love and have known since I was a little girl. And I also believe in giving and being a part of the extended family and making the younger generation, our nieces and nephews and their grandchildren, and their children rather, something of myself. I love to talk to my granddaughter about my life as a young girl, as a teenager, and as a young adult. I like to tell her about our faith because her father is American And so she would not have the same advantage of growing up in a Parsi family like I did. As I said, I love to preserve my friendships. And now, here in this retirement community where we live and where we meet many, many Americans, they are very interested in our faith. And I've had the opportunity to talk about our faith to them. And they are extremely interested and ask very good, pertinent questions. In fact, there is a Thanksgiving service next month, and I will talk about the Gambars as to how we Zoroastrians celebrate Thanksgiving. So I want Americans to understand that it's not just one day of celebration, but that the year is divided into four, and that thanks is given to Aura Mazda, or God, because of all that he has given from the animal kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the plant kingdom, and so I look forward to this talk so that I can let people know that there is a faith apart from Christianity, which is so tolerant, so giving, and so wonderful. And this is what I want to be remembered by, as someone who openly talked about her faith, and who loved God, who has always loved God, and who has tried to live my life the way He wanted me to live. I also want to be remembered as someone who has always had a deep love of my birth country, India. And I'm so proud of India's progress today and all that is being achieved by the men and women there. One thing one should remember is that when I was growing up, I, like millions of people all over the world, looked upon the United States as a beacon. We knew, many of us, that we would never be able to come to this country, maybe for a visit, but never live here. I was fortunate that my life changed overnight. But for many, all that we could do was read about this country, learn everything, her history, her geography, her literature, her music. To me, jazz was a beautiful art form. The architecture and just the knowledge that was so much a part of this country. But it was gratifying to even learn about India's ancient history and how the main civilizations were prevalent in India during the past centuries when Europe and England and America were in the Dark Ages. So there's a great pride in my land of birth, excuse me, and, uh, and a very deep patriotic feeling for this country, the United States, which has been my home for the last 62 years. I think that's about all I have to say to the future generation, except keep the faith going, keep the religion strong, teach your children what it means to be a Zoroastrian, and be proud of the fact that you are a Zoroastrian. Thank you.
Do you mind to like sharing your artifacts with us?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of it's a photograph of a portrait of my grandfather. He was painted by a portrait artist, a Zoroastrian portrait artist called Zora Pitawala in Pune, India. And this portrait hangs in the Agyari in Pune, where he was the manager or the dastur uh, for many years. He was a very tall man, over 6 feet, and my grandmother was very petite, 4'10". They were married at the age of she 15 and he 16. They just saw each other once before they got married, but it turned out to be a very loving marriage. My mother was a very happy daughter with her three other brothers and her younger sister. And the whole community loved my grandfather. And while I was only a child and saw him lying on his bed because he was paralyzed, I still have that. I look at his picture and I still have that feeling that I wish I could have gotten to know him better. Another picture, this is a picture of Jimmy and I when we got married. Uh, as you see, the ceremony takes place when we are seated, and the two priests, one from my side and one from his side, say the prayers and throw rice and flower petals on us as a sign of fertility and happiness and good fortune. Each one wears a garland of flowers and carries a bouquet. My sari is white with some pale pink embroidery, and I'm wearing my family's jewelry. The headgear for my husband is called a pagri, and on the back of the pagri, oh, the pagri is made by only one or two families the art of which has been handed down from father to son. The back of the pagri is shaped like the hoof of a cow, and this is to give respect to the Hindu king who granted us Zoroastrians asylum when we fled to India to escape the Arab Muslims who had invaded Persia and who wanted us to convert to Islam or die. Mm, And, and then this last picture is that in the center is my uncle, my mother's brother, who performed the ceremony. And he is the title of Dastur, so he gets to wear a shawl. His head is always covered, even at home when he would be eating or just being at home, he would always wear a cap. And most Dasturs always have a beard because to shave every day and we and the hair being unclean, there should be no contamination. On the on this side, this is my dad greeting my uncle and thanking him. And now that headgear that my dad has worn and my father-in-law here has worn is different from the puggery that Jimmy wore. That headgear is called a fatto, and most Parsis wore this probably to protect their heads from the hot Indian sun, but also it was made only by one or two special families who specialized in this headgear. The lady is my mother. As you see, she has her head covered because in our faith, when we say our prayers, the head should be covered. Uh, and, uh, and I kept that head covering on throughout the wedding uh, evening because as a sign of respect to my parents-in-law uh, uh, who are who were conservative. This is the Ashofaroha. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes. This is the outward symbol of the Zoroastrian faith. You will see this Ashofaroha on several buildings in and around Bombay, which denotes that it is a Zoroastrian company. And I believe it is also seen in Iran today because the Iranian government has accepted that Zoroastrian can be practiced in Iran, but quietly. No other religion is allowed to be practiced in Iran except Zoroastrianism because of its ancient history. The Baha'i faith is absolutely forbidden in Iran, but this hangs above my front door as a this icon, as I said, is the symbol the outward symbol of the Zoroastrian faith, as is fire in an urn. And but we don't worship fire. We have never worshipped fire. We believe that fire is the outward symbol of God and His eternal light. So the fire that we do reverence to in our temples is really, I would say, God's eternal light. And that's why we keep a lamp in our homes, because this is how we ask God to come into our home and bless it.
No, that's totally great. Thank you so much for all your input, all your time. It was great listening to you.
Sure, yes.